Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Ruth Frazier, and I'm the training coordinator for Evergreen, Indiana. Welcome to this Training Tuesday for the Evergreen Indiana Library Consortium. Today's topic is marketing tips for Evergreen, Indiana libraries. Today we are pleased to introduce Jenna Anderson from Kendallville Public Library. Jenna is the support services manager and has really elevated the way her library communicates with the public. With that, I'll give the floor to you, Jenna.
Thank you, Ruth. Let me share my screen
Yeah, let
here.
me change my share real quickly.
Perfect.
There you go.
Thank you. And we'll get over here. Okay, let's get started. Thank you, Ruth, for that introduction. I appreciate it. Yes, my name is Jenna Anderson. I am the support services manager at the Kendallville Public Library. Previously, the past 18 years or so, I was the marketing specialist, and what this title means is I still handle all the marketing, but as many of you know, occasionally sometimes extra tasks get added onto your job. So that was kind of the situation with me. Also, I've been hired as a freelance marketer over the years by, in addition to our library, 3 other libraries to help plan their migration to Evergreen, Indiana, and to promote Evergreen, Indiana to their patrons and their staff. So here's the very first thing I'm going to suggest to you guys. If you haven't already done this, subscribe to the Evergreen, Indiana listservs. The website is on the screen. However, I just Googled Evergreen, Indiana listserv and I got it. So there's a few reasons why I think this is very important. First and foremost, if Evergreen has an issue with their servers and is down, you're going to know why, and you're going to be able to communicate that very quickly to your staff and patrons. The second reason is they're always telling us about new features. So this is one of the best ways and the first ways to find out what is coming up new with Evergreen, Indiana. And then you'll also learn about what other libraries are joining Evergreen, how to get involved with committees, what training sessions like this and other Training Tuesdays are available. So I think this is one of the most important things you can do, is to keep yourself informed about what's happening in Evergreen, Indiana, so that you can keep your patrons and staff informed. So I think those are keys to effectively marketing Evergreen, Indiana. So right off the top, I want to get some input from you guys. And because I'm doing a PowerPoint, I can't see the, I have to see if I can figure out how to do this. I can't see the chat anymore. But
I will kind of interrupt you if you're okay
Perfect.
with that, and let you know what things have come into the chat.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
So once you've subscribed, and let me be clear that marketing Evergreen, Indiana is critical no matter where you are at in your journey. You know, if you're a library that's considering coming on board, if you're someone who's recently migrated, if your migration's coming up here soon, or, you know, like us, you've been a library for an Evergreen, Indiana library for 11 years, you've got to keep talking about Evergreen, Indiana. It's not just something that you can, you know, just get into the groove of okay, this is what we do. We have to keep telling people about it. And there's always things that we can learn about it. So you want to start telling patrons about your benefits if you haven't already, whether they're new to Evergreen, Indiana, whether you know you want to bring new people on board. We need to keep our patrons informed as to what's going on as well. So in the chat, share some of what you think are the biggest benefits of Evergreen, Indiana for your patrons. I'll give you a minute to do that.
This is from Bridget. She has automatic renewal. Jennifer says large interlibrary loan choices. Christy says access to lots of materials. Deanna says the access to so many books. Resource sharing from Sonia, resource sharing from Jennifer. Steffi, A lot of things that have to do with access to more materials. The connection to other libraries in the county makes it great for our patrons, from Jennifer McKinley. I'm going to read this whole thing here from Kaylee. With over 100 plus other participating libraries in the state, you always have access to materials we may not have, currently checked out items, and perhaps different formats that we don't have in-house. Christy has a great thing from a cataloger standpoint, Z3950 cataloging. It's an affordable entry point for an ILS, especially for small libraries. Melissa says definitely Z3950, and I personally also love Z3950.
I'll take your word for it. I'm a marketer, not a cataloger.
Yeah.
I will take your word for it. That's great. Thank you for sharing those, Ruth. Yeah, those are all fantastic things that Evergreen offers our patrons. In addition to some of those things that were mentioned, there's one library card that allows your patrons to get access to, 125 plus whatever the number is now libraries around the state. And I know that that's something that's important in our area. Because we do here in Noble County, we have 3 different library systems, but all 3 library systems are in Evergreen, Indiana. So any of the patrons in the county can go to any of the libraries. And I think that's really a benefit. There's also the libraries in DeKalb County, which is next door to us, are Evergreen. LaGrange County, which is north of us, is Evergreen. So we have quite a variety of people who do visit different libraries, and having that one library card for them is definitely a real benefit. Being able to drop off items and return items at any location is definitely a benefit for our patrons too, that we see getting used quite a bit. And Kaylee, from the Eckerd Public Library, you're going to see a few things here from your library that we actually did back in 2016 when you guys were migrating over. So now that we've kind of talked about what the benefits are for patrons, we have to tell them about those things. Whether we're new to Evergreen or whether we've been on Evergreen forever, we need to keep telling patrons about why Evergreen has such benefits for them. So we're going to kind of focus on a few things now. One thing that we did for Eckerd Public Library when they migrated in 2016 was we created a lot of materials that were specifically for patrons. And we did this in bookmark form for a couple reasons. Bookmarks are a little more interesting to read than a regular 11 by 17 piece of paper. And you know what? Our patrons need them when they check out books from us from the library. So this is one of the easiest things to do to get the information in people's hands. So the one on the right is pretty straightforward. This is kind of one of the earlier pieces of information that we sent out to the the Eckerd Public Library patrons. So in this first one, it talks about, here's the basics. What is Evergreen, Indiana? Why is Evergreen, Indiana? Why are we moving to this new system? And it talks about some of the benefits, not only to the library, but to the patrons. And then it kind of introduces, okay, so now we've piqued your curiosity a little bit. So here's what we're going to do next. We're going to show you how to do this, 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 and this. Maybe you could do that before with your old system. Maybe you couldn't. But we're going to talk about training a little bit more. We also need to get our patrons and our staff interested in training as well. So that second example then on the right was something that was released a little bit closer to the time that Eckerd migrated. So this again, what is Evergreen? This is a frequently asked question. So what is Evergreen? Then this one a little deeper. Okay, so here's when we're going to go live. Here's what's going to happen. The library is going to have to be closed. You're going to need to get a new library card. Now it's time to talk about your circulation policies and fines and things like that. So this was something, this was as we're migrating, this is information that we got out there to patrons. However, this doesn't have to be something you do just when you migrate. This is a great refresher for the patrons who've had a card with your library for years. It's also great information to get out there to people who could potentially benefit from this that don't currently have a library card. when patrons find out that they have access not only to your library, but to 125 plus different libraries across the state and all those millions of resources, that could be enough to get them to come in your doors and get a card. And I think what happens, when we do big announcements, when we move to Evergreen, things like that, we do get more people to come through our doors, because it gives us the chance to really do a push for our libraries and really get some good information out there about what people are doing. One of the things that I did recently, this wasn't even part of my notes, but I just thought of it. One of the things I did recently, because with COVID, we didn't have access to get information to the schools for summer reading. What I did was I used Every Door direct mail. And so I sent out our summer reading information to everyone who lives in our service area. And there were some beyond our service area just because that's the way the postal routes are set up. But the information about Evergreen, Indiana does affect everyone in your service area. So if you are trying to reach people who don't come into your library, you want to get that message out there. Every Door direct mail is really a great way to do that. It's somewhat cost effective. It's still a little expensive, but depending on the message that you need to get out there and the importance of that message, it can definitely be worth it. So something to think about. And if you have questions about that, let me know. I'd be happy to talk with you about that. So when we migrated back in, what was it, 2009, I think, this is something that I did for our patrons. This is an entire 8-page newsletter telling them everything that they could possibly need to know at that time about Evergreen, Indiana. It had really good information in it, but I think for a lot of people, it would have been completely, today I wouldn't do this. Today I would not put something together like this at all. It would be pretty overwhelming for people to get handed this 8-page newsletter and say, yep, here you go. Take this, digest it, come back and use Evergreen. But this was at a time when at our library, we, instead of doing quick bites of information, like we were kind of doing for Eckert in 2016, we were actually producing these 8-page newsletters on different features. So, this one happened to fall at the time of that we migrated to Evergreen. So it's definitely something I would do today. It had good information in it. I would just piece it out to our patrons a little bit more differently today than we did 11 years ago. And this is all the same information that was in here that we gave to the Eckert patrons. We just did it differently and in small bits at a time, which does make it a little bit easier to digest. And this, sorry about my page turning here, people. And this is one of the ways that we really got out some of those small bits of information to Eckert patrons was through these posts that could be done on social media. They could be put in the newsletter, that sort of thing. Back when we were migrating, I don't think we had Facebook. I mean, I think Facebook was there, but as a library, we weren't on Facebook at that time. So, social media opens up just a whole new realm of possibilities for this. So we did little informational pieces like this. So here's our Evergreen, Indiana tip number 1. What's the first step to take advantage of Evergreen, Indiana? You have to get a new library card. Here's how you get a new library card. So yeah, this was great when we were talking about them migrating to Evergreen, Indiana, but this applies today because if you don't currently have a library card or you need to renew a library card, this is still the way to do it. You have to have that photo ID, you have to come in. So it's still a great piece of information for patrons, whether they've had a library card, whether you're trying to get new patrons to come into the library. Some of the other tips that we did like this for Eckert included real basic instructions on how to do a search, how to access your account, some of those skills that are very helpful to patrons when they want to access their account or take advantage of Evergreen, Indiana on their own. So, and these, again, you don't have to be migrating to Evergreen, Indiana. These are good. This is good information to put out there any time to your patrons, just to kind of give them a refresher, give yourself a refresher, and people are gonna learn from this. And these are often done in videos as well, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So back to brainstorming here. This time, we're going to talk a little bit about our staff. So this time, share your ideas on how Evergreen Indiana is beneficial to staff. What's in it for us, basically? So I'll give you a minute to share some of your ideas.
So I will say, going back, that the Z3950, that's definitely a benefit for staff. And Jennifer says cataloging is easier.
Yeah. And I know Anita Brown is on this call, and she gushes about how much better cataloging has gotten over the years. So she's very excited about the way that that is moving.
Thank you, Anita. Tina says, helps us find materials within the library better for the patrons. The camaraderie from Angie. I appreciate that the web client now allows us to work wherever we need to without worrying about a staff client install. I agree with that, Catherine. A fairly straightforward card sign-up process. Jennifer agrees with Angie on the camaraderie and also easy access to assistance through Evergreen. And Josephine says, and this is in quotes, a satisfied patron says, we don't have that item, but I can place a hold in Evergreen and it will be delivered here for you. And that being the quote to the patron who is then satisfied with that. Great support from other Evergreen Indiana libraries, much better than the old card catalog. Thanks. The request for a library card. Oh, okay. That's something that I'll take note of, Stephanie, and that's more a suggestion than a benefit. The web client's ease of searching for reports, now that it's been added into there, and our awesome help desk that's very quick about crafting or finding one that works, and then cataloging collaboration.
Yes, there is, and that's, collaboration definitely is one of the things that was a big benefit for me for staff. It kind of creates this family of libraries, and we're able to kind of team up, talk to each other, ask questions. And for a lot of us, it's great for me up here in Noble County because, like I said, we have all the systems in our county are on Evergreen, DeKalb County, several in Steuben County, LaGrange County, Whitley County. I mean, we have a lot of Evergreen libraries really close by for some support and some assistance when we need it. And the support from the Indiana State Library as far as training and technology, things like that, are fantastic. Tech support, I have found with the State Library, is fantastic. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I am looking for new software, it's the tech support that really sells me on it. So they are very responsive and very knowledgeable. So that for me is a huge benefit. And like some of you mentioned, we're able to say yes to our patrons more often. So I don't know about you, but I don't like to say no. I want to be able to say yes. So it's nice to be able to say, you're right, we don't have it here, but we have access to 100 and some other library collections across the state. Let me place that hold. We'll get it sent here for you. That makes it so much easier for us to say yes. And because I have helped libraries migrate to Evergreen, one of the things that I know is it's generally a cost savings for them. So it's cheaper to have Evergreen than to move to a different ILS generally. So that's a good benefit for the library as well. And patrons too, as your taxpayers, I guess. So as we've talked about, here's some more information from Eckert. It's just as important for you to market Evergreen Indiana to your staff as it is to market to your patrons. And that really does include training too. So here's something that we created for the Eckert Public Library. It was a document specifically for staff with details and talking points. And so this made sure that everyone knew the correct responses to patron questions that we just knew were going to be coming up. But this is good. Talking points, I can't overstate the importance of talking points for staff when you're going through a big change. Moving to Evergreen, Indiana is one. We transitioned to our topic-driven system for our nonfiction. That was one. I think we even did one for when we did a major weed in our collection. So having talking points like this for major changes in your library is so important because you have to market to the staff as well as the patrons. So if you're making changes to your library, theoretically, it's a good thing. There are benefits to the changes that you're making. So we need to make sure our staff understands that. We need to make sure that our staff has a similar response to patrons when they ask questions. So we need to make sure that they have all the information available at their fingertips. And talking points is a great way to do that because it's on paper. They can grab it and refer to it when they need to. And something like this is always good to let our staff know, especially, as we're bringing new people on board. It's important to let them know the power that Evergreen Indiana has, what training is available, the benefits to our libraries, all sorts of things. So talking points, I can't overstate it. So important when it comes to making a big change at your library, or if you just need to do a refresher for your staff. Ruth, are there any questions come in at this point before we start talking about videos?
Not at this point. Does anybody have anything before we move forward? There were a couple more brainstorming comments, including the ability to run reports and being able to tell patrons exactly what we have in-house, or if not, where they can find it.
I appreciate the reporting because I'm not a report person, but I was able to figure out when we first closed the library how to run circulation reports, and I was so excited by that. So yeah, the process is pretty smooth, and if I can figure it out, I think anybody can probably figure that out. So
I'm not seeing any questions in here, so I think we can move forward.
All right, sounds great. So I mentioned before that creating videos is something that we have done in the past, and it's something we're going to continue to do. It's a great way to get patrons and even your staff, again, familiar with and comfortable using those Evergreen Indiana tools. So as far as platforms to get those videos out there go, we currently use Niche Academy. We have a series of Evergreen videos on our KPL Connect site, which I believe when Ruth sent out the reminder yesterday, she had shared that with you so that you could see those. I'll kind of show you a little bit here about what we've been doing and talk about how I want to do it in the future. So you can also use YouTube, Facebook, any way that you have at your fingertips and available for you to get the information out there. The reason that we use Niche Academy is because I love the platform. Again, I love the support that we have. Not that I'm going to get a software just because I love their support, but like I said, it's certainly a benefit. But it gives us the opportunity to have either free and open resources for our patrons or things that they can, or I guess are required to create an account and register for. So that has come in handy for us in the past when we were originally doing things like requiring certification for our makerspace. That was pretty important to us in the past. Right now, we don't have anything that they need to log into, but I do appreciate the way that they have their analytics, ease of being able to add things. And when you have things on your own personal platform like that, they don't necessarily always get lost like they might on YouTube. So that's kind of why we have Niche Academy, but there is a cost to it. I want to say it's about $1,000 a year, and I think there is a discount available either through Evergreen or the State Library. I think they have an agreement somewhere along there, but and if you have any questions about that, I'm more than happy to give you some more information about Niche Academy. Here's my big suggestion for videos, and I am so guilty of this, and it's because this is my background. I have a degree in broadcasting, so I tend to want to overproduce things, which is good. It makes your videos look good. It makes them a little more fun, professional when they're kind of heavily edited and overproduced. But it makes it more difficult to produce. I have some of the tools that I need to do that. Not everybody does. So It makes them more difficult to produce. If I have to update them, it's a lot more work. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. Get an expensive microphone, external microphone for your computer. The one I'm using right now, it's a blue Snowball, but I have like a $15 one up there that I can use as well. Get an expensive or an inexpensive or free screen recorder. What I use is ice cream recorder. I guess, yeah, I have ice cream recorder, as in the delicious frozen treat. That's a one-time $25 fee, and you can have it for as long as you need it. Also, here's a tip. Write out the steps to using that tool or doing whatever it is you're teaching your patrons to do. And that's important for a couple reasons. First, it really kind of, as you go through the video, and we're going to talk about this a little more, so if I'm confusing you now, just hang on. It's going to ensure that you don't miss anything as you are going through the process on your computer of showing people how to do something. Secondly, and most important for me, is that it will give you the text to upload with your video, which will make it more accessible. And if somebody just needs to refer to it really quickly to find a piece of information or a step they've skipped, they can just scroll through your text and find it rather than watch the whole video and scroll through that to try to figure out where it's at. So that for me is my suggestion for making videos. So I'm going to show you a couple examples now. This one, and I've got to get it a second to get ready to play. This one is one of the highly produced videos that I created in the last, year or two maybe, on using baskets. So this is a highly produced video. The addition of baskets is one way Evergreen, Indiana is making your life easier. These online baskets, accessible through your account or the library's catalog, can help you organize any items you'd like. Just begin a search for items. When you find one that you want, click on the item and you'll see that Add to Basket has been included in your list of options. Click that and the item will be added to your basket. You can continue to do this for any other items you'd like. You'll have the option to deal with all of them in a batch later. When you're ready to organize your items, you can easily access your basket from any screen. The drop-down menu gives you a list of options, but we're going to choose View Basket. From here, we can select some or all of the items and do a number of things with them. We can place them all on hold at once, saving a lot of time, or if we have too many to place on hold right now, we can move them to lists we have created previously. This is just another way Evergreen, Indiana is working to make your online transaction faster. So that's an example of a pretty heavily produced video. All the audio in there was pre-recorded. There was a lot of editing, music, graphics. Sure, it was fine. It looked good. It looked professional. But if Evergreen were to change something, that would take me a lot of time and effort to redo that video. So this one I'm going to share with you now is something that was done by Leah Dresser, who is our Adult Services Manager. This is something she did when we closed, I think, at the end of March, beginning of April. So much easier to produce. It was really done in about 5 minutes, you know, about the time it takes you to watch the video. It was over and done. And, you know, I think it really makes it a little bit more intimate and personal. Now, her video is a little not evergreen, I guess you could say, in that because she talks about, you know, missing our patrons and things like that, it can only really be used for a short period of time. But I think it's going to give you kind of a good idea of what I mean by just getting that screen capture software, getting that microphone, and just, you know, telling patrons about what they can do.
Hi everyone, it's Leah from the Kendallville Public Library, just checking in. We still miss you. If you're anything like me, you love looking at our new materials shelf to see what has just come out and what you can take home. Since that's not currently an option, I wanted to show you how you can put our new items on hold so that you can pick them up via curbside service or doorstep delivery. So you'll go to kendallvillelibrary.org, and then all of our new books are listed on our current newsletter. So you'll click read our current newsletter here. If you're not subscribed, you can subscribe by emailing info@kendallvillelibrary.org with your email. It lists our programs coming up. Please make sure that you have completed the census. You can see our activities. Brittany's workout videos are amazing. We have really great turnouts for trivia night. Even virtual trivia has been going well. You can see our new books are right here. So we're going to look through and see what we want to put on hold. I would like to read The Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd. You might know her from The Secret Life of Bees. So we'll go back to kendallvillelibrary.org, click Search the Catalog, and then we'll type The Book of Longings. I never make typos, so that was shocking. We'll wait for it to load. It takes just a second. In the meantime, I'll make awkward small talk. It's really nice outside today. You can see The Book of Longings right here. We'll click Place Hold. Underneath, you might have noticed another version that says e-audio. That means it's a book that's available on Overdrive. So if you prefer Overdrive, you can do it that way. You'll just put it on hold and click Submit. Now, our current newsletter right now only lists our new books. If you're interested in finding out what new DVDs are coming out, I'm going to show you a new way to search just for on-order items. So I clicked New Search, then click Advanced Search. We're going to choose All Books and Movies, Coming Soon, and make sure that only Kendallville Public Library is chosen. Then hit search. This will take just a minute to load because there are lots and lots and lots of new movies that are currently in process just because we haven't been open, so we haven't had a chance to get all of those cataloged yet. And also I think our distributor was closed down just with everything going on. So you can see some of the new movies that are released. Soon we'll have May and June up here, so you'll see all of those. So what you'll do is just pick the one that you want. For example, if you want The Gentleman, we'll just click Place Hold. And then hit Submit, and you're good to go. If you have any problems with your PIN number or your account, you can email ldresser@kendallvillelibrary.org or info@kendallvillelibrary.org, and we will try to get you all set up. Let us know if you have any questions, and have a great day.
Okay, so that's kind of an example of something that took just a few minutes to produce. I do feel like that is very personal. It feels like you're more talking one-on-one to a patron. So I really like the vibe that gives off. One thing that I would suggest that you do is if you're going to do videos like this, create a dummy account or something like that. We have Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley all have accounts that we use for test things. And we also have a Kendallville first name, last name library account as well, so that we're able to use those accounts when we do videos like this. You saw that probably that big black box that was covering up Leah's phone number because she was using her own personal account. So one thing that I do suggest that you do is use a dummy account because then you won't have to go back through in post-production and cover up sensitive information that you don't want people to get out there. So let's move on to talking about just briefly about live training. So if you've done some live online things since we've been closed, some online programming, that's really a good time to try to feature some live training of Evergreen Indiana tools. The ability to have everything online really makes it easy for us to do this. So, when you're thinking about hosting programming, do some of your own Evergreen Indiana webinars through Zoom. That really gives patrons a chance to ask questions, and staff, don't forget about staff. It really gives people a chance to ask questions as you're going through it. You're not doing it face-to-face, so of course right now it's a little bit safer. And there's always new features coming out that staff can be trained on, that patrons need refreshers on. So as you're thinking about some of your virtual programming, doing some of that programming training with Evergreen Indiana would be a great thing to add to your programming list. And I do want to note too that when you're creating training videos for your patrons, specifically for your patrons, it's really important for the staff to view those as well. So when I can create those videos on how a patron can access their account or change their preferences or use those baskets like you saw before, I want our staff to know how to do it because, they may not, I know that when I access my account, I'm always doing it through the staff side. because that's what I have handy. So as staff, we're probably not getting used to or the exposure that we need to on the patron side. So sharing those videos with your staff, even if they're created solely for patrons, gives them the opportunity to become familiar with the patron side so they can more easily answer questions that patrons have when they come in or they call on the phone. So the staff really needs to know what your patrons are being told so they're not completely in the dark when somebody comes in and says, yeah, I saw something online about baskets. What can you tell me about baskets? And, you don't want to be embarrassed and say, oh, we have baskets over there that you can put books in while you're browsing. You want your staff to know that you've just released a video showing them how to use baskets, get them familiar with it so that they can help patrons too when they come in and need that assistance. Okay, so let's move on to, let me stop and ask Ruth, are there any questions about videos or anything we've talked to up at this point?
Nope, not
Okay,
yet.
perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about how KPL is marketing Evergreen, Indiana now. Some of the things that we are currently doing, because we've talked a lot about the past and things we should do in videos. So what are we doing now? I have to say that I am in love with the ability to have a unique URL when I do a search on the patron side of the OPAC. I'm using that for so many things. In this instance, somebody recently shared a photo of a cake they baked and decorated with a butterfly cake pan from our cake pan collection. So when they sent me this, I used that as an opportunity really to promote our entire collection of cake pans. So here's how I did it. Feel free to stop and ask questions if you're not understanding what I'm saying, because it's kind of hard to do, when I'm just talking about it. But I went into the patron side search. In the search for our library only, I just typed cake pans. My search came up. I grabbed that URL. And then from there, as you can see on the screen, I used our Bitly account to create a custom URL for that cake pan search. And that's because the URLs through Evergreen are very long. And so it looks much better if you can do a custom URL like this. And I do have the free account, so it says, Bitly, I don't have a custom. It's not that custom. I didn't pay for custom. But something to do to make it a little bit more personal and easier to understand than just a random URL from Evergreen. So that's one of the ways that I'm using those custom URLs. And I'll show you here on the next screen too. When you click on that custom URL that I created, here's what you see. So patrons, it would pop up with all of our cake pans there in the catalog. They could immediately place a hold. They could see which ones we have. And there are lots of reasons to do this. And one of them for me is this. So what I used to do until I got a little overwhelmed, a lot overwhelmed, is to create a web page with all of the images of things that were in our, what we called at the time, unique collections. So that included the cake pans, the board games, the video games. I think there were puzzles there, launch pads. So there's all these different topics, Cortex kits, things that were in our unique collections. So what I was doing prior to this is I was adding the individual images of what everything was, and then I was providing a link to that individual item for the patron. They could click it, view it in the catalog, place a hold on it, whatever they wanted to do. Is this a great way to do it? Absolutely, it's a great way to do it. It really gives patrons the ability to see, here's exactly what it is. I even categorize these cake pans. But what happens is, and I'm sure it's happens to other people too, and not just me, is that you keep adding items to your collections. You add additional collections. And so doing this work gets to be very tedious. And at some point you miss something and you're way behind. So rather than having an individual page for these collections, like this one, this example I'm using for the cake pans, what I do now is I just create a search and link that to our webpage. And I haven't done that for all of our items now because I'm in the process of developing a new website for the library. So when I launch that new website, instead of having pages like this, it will be, we'll have what we call now library of things instead of unique collections. We will have library of things, tools, and tech. And so I will have a link to all of the items that are in that tools and tech category. I will have a link to all the items that are in the kitchen category. I will have a link to all the video games, a link to all the board games, a link to all the yard games, and I think you get the picture. So what happens with that is that when new items are cataloged in those collections, that link will automatically pull those items in when you do that search, because every time you click on the link, you're redoing that search essentially. So those items should all automatically be included in as they're cataloged, and then I don't have to worry about keeping things updated because frankly, I wasn't doing a very good job of it. So I was so happy to find another way to do it. The other thing you can do along these lines is to create a list. So Evergreen has the ability for staff to create a list for a collection of items. If you do this, it's a good way to do it. However, you'll need to add the items to the list as they are cataloged and added to your collection. And I don't know if this has changed, but when I was working on creating lists, I know I was receiving all sorts of errors, and support knew about them. So I don't know if that's something that's going to be fixed soon, or if that's coming up if it's been fixed, or if that's coming up in the upgrade. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, it's a persistent issue. And
right.
The point that you make about having to add things to the list is a good one. It still requires that maintenance, whereas if you have a persistent search string is essentially what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Under the Bitly, that's going to update it. So you could, and depending on how you construct that search, it's going to affect what of course is showing in it. So you could perhaps do it by shelving location if you had, say, all of your cake pans were in this, or it could even be, there are some ways that you could even use buckets with it. So
mm-hmm. Yeah,
there are a lot of different ways to do this, and I think it's pretty inspiring. The different ways that you've kind of fussed around with it to make it happen the way you want it to happen.
Well, and I do want to stress that I know that, the catalogers are all getting together. They're doing lots of great things, but there are still differences in the way that libraries do catalog. So I would encourage you to talk to your cataloging team about the best ways to do this for your library, because they have all the insider knowledge. So if you want to do something like this, definitely talk to your cataloging staff, see what the best way to do it they feel is. That's going to make it easiest for you, going to make it most beneficial for the patrons. Another thing about URLs that I want to bring up is I do mark it with links to the catalog for our books, for our new books that come out. So these are things that are just now being added to our collection. So these emails have not been sent out for a while, which is why this says books available March 31st. Because, when you shut the library down, it wrecks a lot of things. So we feature these new books that are coming out, and I typically do it for the week following. So I would send this out maybe on a Wednesday, and then these would be the books that would be released on the following Tuesday. So these are links to not the books directly, but they are searches for the books. So, and we do that because talking to Anita, our cataloger, when the on-order items are listed in the catalog, when we get that specific item in, the item in the catalog could change. So if I linked directly to the regular print copy of James Patterson's Texas Outlaw, you might get an error back from that because in the time that I publish that link to the time that the book comes out to the time the patrons see the link, that item could have changed. So the URL could have changed. So in that case, what I'm doing is I'm searching for James Patterson, Texas Outlaw, and that is going to return the items no matter how that particular item in the collection changes. And I know that's really, that's
I
really
think it's
convoluted
actually,
way of saying that.
that's a good idea though, because especially for those items that maybe they are being released in a simultaneous release, where perhaps you have an audiobook and a print book at the same time, or you have a large print and a regular print that are being released at the same time. And so doing a search for those would actually make those different formats discoverable.
Exactly. And that's a great thing. So you're not worrying about a broken link, and the people who prefer large print or audio are they're able to see all of the options. Yeah. But I can't stress enough, be sure to talk to your cataloging staff about how they think that things like this should be done, because they're the experts on the catalog. I know that I'm not an expert. I rely on Anita for so much when it comes to this sort of thing. So, we've talked about this, and we've kind of decided that unless something drastically changes in Evergreen, unless something drastically changes in the way we're cataloging, that these searches that I've created are going to be solid. But even if something should cause these URLs to break, adjusting them, one link for an entire collection is so much easier than adjusting 50 links for a cake pan collection, or 150 links for a board game collection, or whatever the case may be. So for me, this is the most convenient way to do it, and I think this is something we're definitely going to stick with for a while. Okay.
A thing that is coming up too that I think, Jenna, you will be particularly interested in as we go forward is something called Carousels, and that may be also a way that you utilize to highlight different things. So, but we'll talk about that in a couple months.
Well, that's my slide after this too.
Awesome.
So just a real brief mention of it. So thank you. So here's kind of what I'm working on next. We haven't really started this yet because we're kind of waiting for the Evergreen update to come through to see, what changes. Because again, if I'm creating a video, I don't necessarily want to create a video if something's going to look different in a few months. So Anita and I are working on some ideas to create some videos or some, social media graphics or something like that for some very brief insider tips on how to use Evergreen Indiana. She is so well versed in the system, especially on the cataloging side. So, one of the things that we have done previously, and we looked at it a little bit, Leah kind of showed us how she does it. But one of the things we've talked about previously, Anita and I, is shelf browse. So by showing our patrons that they can go into advanced search and then choose numeric search, and then choose shelf browse, they can enter new in the identifier to see all of our on order books. So I kind of did that. Here's a screenshot of what that looks like. These are the books that we think will be released in August, although we just found out yesterday that with COVID, a lot of those release dates are getting pushed back. So really, in all honesty, we have no idea when these books are going to be released. So right now it says August, but we'll see when they come in. So I've asked her to help me come up with a list of kind of these insider tips. So, okay, let's go a little bit deeper into the catalog, and what are some tips and tricks to find exactly what we're looking for, or to make things easier on ourselves, or that sort of thing. So that's something that we're going to be working on. And I know, I said that Anita's so excited about the way the catalog across Evergreen is shaping up. And so she's a great person, a great resource for me to get tips about the catalog and great things that we can tell our patrons. So, and she and I have spoken about the way the links to the collections could be broken, as I said. So I'm always going to her if I want to try something new, because I don't know if it's going to work, but she's going to be able to tell me if it works or not. So I think that's very important. Okay, and as you mentioned, Ruth, carousels are going to be coming up, which I think is very cool. So Anita had told me about Georgia Pines. They already have their carousels going. So here's kind of a quick look at what it is. But I think this is going to be a great way for us to feature items that are either available at our library or across the consortium, but it's something that's going to draw people to the OPAC. I think for a lot of patrons, the catalog can be very intimidating sometimes. And I know that I want to do everything I can. And we love helping our patrons. I mean, let's be honest. They're the reason we're here. We love helping our patrons with things. But the more self-sufficient that we can make them, the better. So I think this is going to be one way, especially to get people who aren't necessarily as comfortable with the catalog to the catalog. So it's going to be a really easy way for them for us to feature books. We can draw them to the catalog, and then we can kind of, ease them into, okay, here's how you access your account. Here's how you place things on hold. Here's how you do some of those advanced searches. So I'm really looking forward to this feature and to see exactly how it works and how we can feature different parts of our collection. So that's something that I'm definitely looking forward to when that new upgrade comes out. Okay. Phew, I'm going to take a breath. So, Ruth, any questions that have come in? Or any questions anybody wants to ask now?
There are no questions right now. Vicki did say that this is awesome, referring back to the cake pan collection that you were maintaining.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're a library that is forever and constantly changing and growing and adapting and adding new things. So it really does get overwhelming. So to be able to find this, I guess for me, a shortcut to making sure that those collections are easily accessible to our patrons, and so they can see what we have. I'm going to take it. I think it's great.
A lot of the things that you have done and others have done over the years, in a lot of ways the work has already been done in Evergreen, and it's really a matter of pulling it out in such a way that it's organized and understandable for people to refer to it.
Yes.
So Kaylee says, I really like the link you had on the website for the weekly newsletter. Which website do you use to create that weekly?
That is Constant Contact.
Okay. And
that's something that I'm just now, and anybody can go to, if you want to get that newsletter to see what it looks like, you can go to our website at kendallvillelibrary.org. And I believe if you scroll down a little on the right side of the screen, you'll see a link to subscribe to our newsletters. And those, I haven't done them on a weekly basis, simply because we didn't have any programming for a long time to talk about, or we weren't sure when new items were coming in. So I have created, I'm starting to edit those, and I hope to get my first weekly newsletter back out. I think I have it scheduled for next Wednesday. So those will be coming back out soon. So if you want to subscribe to that, or you want to just shoot me an email and I can forward it to you to kind of see how we're doing that, you're certainly welcome to.
And I know, I'm not sure about your library, Kaylee. I know that there are a lot of Evergreen libraries that use the automated newsletter through Wowbrary. It's not nearly as beautiful as the Kendallville's weekly email is, but it does have those new materials that have been cataloged the week before, and you can add to it events and announcements and things. But it's not as pretty.
Yeah, there are certainly easier ways to do it. You're absolutely right. But a lot of it for me is about the way it looks and the way it functions. So yeah, that's kind of why I went this route. So it is more work for me. But yeah, there are much easier ways to do it, and having that information that you can just pull right in from your other software is a really, really convenient way to do it.
Tina says, this helps me because I don't do much with Evergreen because I'm the marketing person at the library. This webinar training has helped me know about Evergreen. That's awesome.
Right. And you've really got to keep informed. And that's why I want to stress those listservs. Anita has helped me understand how important those listservs are. For a long time, I wasn't, or I was getting the digest for the
Right.
Evergreen updates. And by the time I get that digest version, I would have missed so much information.
Yeah.
So that's why I went in and I was able to switch all my preferences to make sure that I was getting those updates as they happened. And yeah, I'm not dealing with Evergreen on a daily basis even. But we do have to let our patrons know when something changes. We do have to be able to market to our staff when something changes if we're the person who markets to the staff. So we have to be able to ask those questions. We have to get that information in the newsletter. So there's lots of reasons for us as marketing people to have that information available at our fingertips.
I tend to think of Evergreen as kind of the spine of the organization. Definitely not the brain, although the people are the brain, but it's that thing that provides the support and the structure. And not everybody's always paying attention to the spine because they're able to walk and they're able to do all those things that you do. But making sure that there's some understanding so you don't hurt yourself and you have an appreciation for it and you can do the things you want to do, whether it's play tennis or go for a walk or watch TV in a comfortable position. It's important for everybody on the library staff to know that they're part of Evergreen, and Evergreen is part of their work environment, even if they're not working with the software, with the cataloging at the circulation desk. So,
yeah, it really is, in a lot of ways, the center of everything we do, and I think that all staff members have a duty to make sure they're understanding it, even if they're not using it all the time.
well, I mean, a duty, yeah, but it also makes your job more fun.
Yeah, and it makes it easier. Trust me, when you understand. I don't work up at the desk a lot, but I do go up there and I'll walk through and help somebody when I'm doing it. And man, if I didn't keep up with it, I don't know how I would be able to handle that.
Well,
So,
I appreciate the comments that this being a nice bridge between those different offices and the technical aspects of the software to a degree.
yeah.
There are lots of very nice comments in here as well, saying this is a great training and thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. Okay. If there's nothing else, Ruth, you want me to
I think
stop my share?
think we're good. Let me see here what Susan has. I just recently realized that I need to do more marketing about our library. This has given me some ideas on what I can do even on a small scale. Thank you for that comment, Susan.
And this, just talking about marketing in general, this time when we have had our library shut down and everything kind of turned upside down, it has really given me the opportunity to rethink the way I do everything. And
Yeah.
so, if I had done this presentation, if things had gone off as planned and we had the Evergreen Indiana conference in person, this presentation might have looked a little bit different. These past few months, I really have kind of rethought the way we do everything. I've completely revamped our newsletter. I feel like a better understanding of kind of some of these tips that we need to give our patrons and better ways to get information out to them. So for me, as somebody who spent the past 18 years marketing this library, I really have appreciated the opportunity to kind of reset my thinking and get a new perspective on things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that from my perspective as well. And Deanna says, thank you so much for this webinar. I feel like we have been in a rut. This has been helpful.
Good. I'm glad.
Okay, well, if that's it and no questions, I think we can call it. Thank you so much, Jenna. It really has been very inspiring to me as well as I think about marketing Evergreen Indiana to the libraries. So
Yeah.
I appreciate all of those tips and the time also just to think about it.
Yeah, happy to help. And if anybody has any questions or wants to see more about anything that I shared, you've got my email address and phone number up there on the screen.
And Jenna, we'll have the recording. Will you have access to send me the slides and
Yes.
have those for the people that have participated? Okay.
Yep, I can absolutely do that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you again, Jenna. It was wonderful. And hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks for the